Christmas in 1995, and she'll be 25 years old here in a few months.
Right.
It was, it was, I think when I look back on sort of the most important events of my life that turned my life around from the person I was when I killed a man in a drunken fistfight to who I am today, I think that was probably, the most important and sort of the last thing that turned me completely 180 degrees away from being that broken young man into a functioning adult.
Right. What was the span of time between your entry into prison and Aaliyah's birth? How many years had gone by?
Oh, I had been in prison then, let's see, 15 years.
Oh, okay.
15 years, yeah.
Yes. And what kind of a difference did it make to suddenly have a child in your lives, you and your former wife?
Well, it was, I can speak for myself.
Right.
I know for my former wife, it was very, very tough. It really was. And of course, anyone who's been a single parent, I'm sure can attest to how tough it is. But speaking for myself, I have been asked this question many, many, many times. And I would say the thing that matters the most about that, as far as my life went, is from the very beginning, the thing I wanted the most was I did not want my daughter to be ashamed of me. And that was a powerful motivator for me to be a better man. And it's still a powerful motivator for me to be a better man. I wanted my daughter, even though I was in prison, even though I had done terrible things as a teenager, I wanted her to be able to feel pride in me and not be ashamed of me being her father. And that was sort of like, that was the gasoline that sort of drove me forward to do better things and become a better man.
And tell us more specifically what you mean by that, that she was a motivator. What did she motivate you to change? What changed, I guess?
Yeah, sure. I think probably, so when my daughter is born, this is right around the time that I begin the process of trying to create the honor program. This is when I become much more serious and focused in trying to make the prison world a better world than the world that I found it and the world that I was stuck in. I guess probably I just felt very, very, it was very important to me that when my daughter looked at my life, later on in her life, she would be able to say, he did good things. He may have done bad things, but he did good things too. And that meant a whole lot to me, and it still means a lot to me. And it sort of hardened up my conviction that I had to be a better person than I had been.
Right. Oh, that's great. And what were visits when they removed family visits? You just had the visiting room. Were those difficult times to just be with so many other people in the visiting room and see her as she grew up?
Well, it's sort of, I guess, it's like a double-edged sword, I suppose. Seeing her was always a wonderful, fantastic thing for me. There was not a moment in my life that I have not, loved my daughter and been immensely proud of her and deeply, deeply impressed by her, which I am to this day. But yeah, there was certainly a bittersweet quality to it, and of course I knew that I knew that the life that I had helped bring her into was not the best life for a kid, and I knew that, and I felt bad about that at some level, and I still do. I do not regret her existence for 1 second, but of course, it's one of those things where you think, looking back on it, it's like, well, should I really have done that? And it's a really complicated thing. Like I say, she's a fabulous young woman, and definitely the world is a better place because she's in it. But was it fair to put that on her?
Yeah, and it's difficult I think for everybody in a family, whether it's the distance you have to go to visit,
Yeah.
the conditions of the visiting room. I've been in so many visiting rooms, I can't even count. And I see what it's like. And when you go to a women's prison and you see the children running into the visiting room, into the arms of their moms, it always breaks my heart. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
very, very hard. How did you stay in touch with her other than the actual visits?
Well, from pretty much from the day she was born, I sent her a card or a letter or something every week. When she reached the point where she was able to talk, I spoke to her on the phone. I was very lucky that the place I was at, it was not that difficult to get phone time.
Oh.
And I would speak to her on the phone usually every single day, 7 days a week, sometimes for as long as an hour at a time.
Mm.
We had a very close relationship in that regard. We talked all the time. We were very, very close, and we talk all the time on the phone still. Actually, we have a very close phone-based relationship to this day, and so yeah, I was in contact with her. Very rarely was I out of contact with her for more than a day or two.
And that makes all the difference. And
I think so.
that's what's so disturbing about the removal of the family visits,
Mhm.
because they are so motivating in terms of uh, behavior. Because if you get a disciplinary ticket, they can take them away. So you would think that the prison system would want to promote family closeness, and they sometimes do everything they can to the opposite end, which is very, very sad. So, from your perspective, and we are almost out of time, but we're going to be talking to Aaliyah next week, and we'll hear her perspective on what it was like for her. But from where you sit today, what do you think the impact of seeing her for so many years in prison? I guess was about what, 22 years of her life where she visited you in prison, and the last almost three now. You've been out. But what impact do you think it had on Aaliyah?
I have no doubt that the what she experienced was terribly traumatic and was definitely hard on her for the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, it's I don't even know what other to say than that.
Yeah.
It was very hard for her. I have no doubt. I think she has turned into an amazing young woman in spite of that. Like I say, I did everything I possibly could to mitigate that. We did have a very close relationship. We still do to this day. And I hope 50 years from now, when I'm long gone and she's talking to her children or her grandchildren, she will be able to say, yeah, he actually wasn't that bad a guy. He probably wasn't the smartest move in the world to have a kid while he was in prison, but he did everything he possibly could to get out and join my life, and we had a good relationship. I
Yeah.
hope that's what she says.
I think the proof is the proof and the key is what you have just told us, that you never stopped trying to
Nope.
connect to her. And
Nope.
I think there are lots of parents who give up, and then maybe the kid gives up, and that's how it goes. But you never did, and that speaks so beautifully for you. And I think Aaliyah is the beneficiary of that. So we are delighted that she has agreed to come on the program. I encourage my listeners to follow our theme this month, where we have Ken as our guest. And after Aaliyah comes, we will have a final meeting with Ken again. I hope, Ken, you will come back in a couple of weeks so we can close out how you have been doing since you got out nearly 3 years ago. Would you do that for us?
I absolutely will. I look forward to it, Harry. Thanks for
Oh,
inviting me.
That's great. That's great. So I will say goodbye to our listeners today, and please join us on Pursuing Justice next time. And thank you so much for listening.